So good evening, greetings everyone. Welcome, welcome. Oh, welcome Rita. Lovely to see you on. Good to see you. I think you had a good day so far. Okay, we're just waiting a little while, just center ourselves, waiting for a few more people to join us, and then we'll get started. And we'll just start with an introduction and a nice mindful activity so we can just ground ourselves and focus on the evening ahead. Greetings. So where are people calling in from anyway? Let's interact on the chat. Just type in where you're calling in from, what part of the world. So welcome everyone who's just joined. So I'm Imani, I'm your host this evening, and you are in a space, this very supportive, protective space for Mindfulness Network for People of Color, MNPC for short. And, you know, we are a not-for-profit organization. It was set up in 2019, and the director's on this evening. So William Flay. So we hail him up in terms of starting this wonderful platform for people to connect. Donald, you're in Brixton. Okay, I'm in sunny Suffolk. Sorry, got people from Canada.
Neighbours.
Wonderful, wonderful. We're truly across the globe today. Canada. Great. So just for those who don't know much about MNPC, it's an organization really specifically for people of color across the diaspora in terms of it's a culturally appropriate well-being space platform organization that offers workshops, events, programs, resources for our people. And we bring together the best from our communities to share with others across the diaspora. And we have mindful teachers, leaders, group facilitators who are part of this space. And we're always on that continual journey for sharing and learning and exchanging, as well as developing and honing our mindful practice, you know, in a safe space. You know, as a community, we are faced with the experiences of racism, sexism, you know, microaggressions and other forms of oppression. And it's really important that we have healing spaces for ourselves, you know, and this is one of them. So you're in for a wonderful, wonderful evening. Just a bit of housekeeping, everyone. If we can keep on mute, you're welcome to keep your cameras on so we can look at your beautiful faces. And if you want to rename, so if there's anyone coming in with iPhone 1, iPhone 2, we know that's not your real name. So we'd encourage you to, you know, just to change it and share your name with us. And throughout the evening, there'll be opportunities to share, you know, to share and ask questions. So, you know, don't feel that you can't do that. We encourage live questioning, but you can also do that in the chat as well. So it's going to be a phenomenal evening, and we're going to soon introduce our wonderful guests. But for now, I just want us to just take a nice deep breath in to the count of 4. Trying to just activate that vagus nerve there from the pushing out our lower abdomen if we can. As we breathe in, we're pushing downwards from the lower belly. And then as we breathe out, we're just pulling in from the navel, from the lower abdomen to the count of 3 or 4. So we're breathing in to the count of 4, pushing our lower abdomen out and down. And then we're breathing out as we're pulling our lower abdomen in. And we're just in silence here at this time as we breathe in this way, so that we can truly be present with each other this evening. As we breathe in, we can just put aside for now everything that's been going on throughout the day and any negative energies that conjured up for us. And we can just take that nice breath in and out so that we're grounded and relaxed and truly present with each other and ourselves. Becoming aware of what that breath feels like coming through our nostrils and coming out. Allowing any thoughts to just go in the back of our minds now, without any judgment, without any analysis, just allowing us to be. Wonderful. And in your own time, just slowly come back into the space and just share how those 2-3 minutes felt for you. You can just type it in the chat. How did that feel for you? Willing that was helpful for us to just come together and just stop that externalization, that internal chatter for a while, to be here present with each other. So this evening, understanding karma. Yes, we've got a phenomenal evening ahead. We've got wonderful guest speakers from around the world. It's going to be an encouraging dialogue to look at that whole cause and effect and how systemic oppression, racism can be best examined through these lenses of our guest speakers and their ways of practicing and understanding karma. So tonight, we'd like to greet our renowned Buddhist teachers from across the globe, that who've taken time and energies to share with us this evening. So we just thank you and welcome. And they're sharing their perspectives, their life journeys, and giving us some guidance, really, of how we understand and make sense of karma as we experience an array of global experiences, threats, whatever we want to say about what's going on at the moment in our communities. How can we become resilient? How can we have that strength and understanding to remain resilient and to understand how some things can be often seen as unjust, yet we can actually put it into perspective, from a spiritual perspective, I mean, so that we can remain anchored. So welcome to our guests. So along the way, we have the opportunity to ask questions, as I said. I would like to introduce our first speaker, who is Bhante Sumano. So welcome, Bhante Sumano. And just give you a little bit of background about Bhante Sumano. He is a Buddhist monk raised in Jamaica and is now living in the US. He's interested in using ancient discourses and wisdom teachings along with contemporary knowledge in order to develop compassion and wisdom in our communities, opening the heart while assisting others to do the same. So let's give a virtual round of applause, welcome, greetings to Banto Sumano. And if we can just pinpoint him on so that we can hear his presentation around understanding karma.
Thank you. Good to be here. I don't know, unfortunately, I'm visiting a monastery in upstate New York, so I'm not sure the indigenous community whose land we're currently on. But for now, New York, upstate New York will have to do. And it's about 1 p.m. here. So I know for you folks across the Atlantic, it's evening. So good evening, good afternoon, good morning, perhaps. I've been thinking about the topic for a couple of days now, actually a couple of weeks since William first invited me to speak. And I think I would preface by saying, and it will probably become clear, that there's so many different perspectives on karma, especially as it relates to how we live our experiences as people of color and how people also view or have sort of opinions or perspectives of their own on what to do when facing injustice or what to do when facing social inequalities. I'm a Theravada Buddhist monk, and specifically, my initial training was grounded in the discourses of the Pali Canon. So I think a lot of my thoughts and views on karma and how it relates to life as a person of color and just life in general has a lot of influence from the Pali Canon, the Pali Suttas in particular. And I say that to mean that I don't have as much experience on how karma has, say, developed over the centuries in traditions all across the globe. But I'm sure my co-panelists will speak about that as well. I think one of the things that gets lost often in conversations about karma, at least as I've been in them and have seen them, is how much emphasis when speaking from the text anyway, the Buddha and his disciples speak about karma as intention or action. Specifically, there's a distinction often made between karma as what someone does or thinks or says and the fruits of karma that they experience. So karma or kamma being used initially just as that thought or word or act or movement in a certain direction, and then the result of that being something else, usually referred to as vipaka. And I think oftentimes that distinction is important because unfortunately I've seen a lot of conversations about karma tend to speak about the fruit or the consequence of actions almost exclusively. And usually that fruit or that consequence or result is almost spoken of without even thinking of causes and conditions that have led up to it. So for example, there was conversation around the time of one of the large tsunamis that had swept across Southeast Asia. And there were people who were saying, well, you know, it's a tragedy and a lot of people died, but that was their karma, for example, for them to die at that moment or in that way. And on one hand, you know, it's sort of misusing the word karma in that sense, and that if you're going to speak of it in that way, that's not karma, but rather the result. But that sort of A to B line that's drawn from karma to vipaka is often one that's drawn very clumsily. Very rarely in the text does the Buddha even make that sort of correlation. And when he does, it's few and far between, and for very sort of run-of-the-mill or mundane activities. So saying, for example, that If one cultivates a habit of stealing, then they'll be deprived in the future. If one cultivates a habit of harming or killing, then they will experience harm themselves. But past that, actually often what you'll see is that to sort of piece apart why certain fruits come to bear would be extremely complicated and pretty much impossible to do. And because of that, his injunction, and one that I also recommend to people, is that when thinking about karma, to think about the actions that are currently and presently happening, and what it is that we and others can do in any given situation. That takes the sort of deterministic spin that people often talk about karma as out of it. So when I think of, for example, social inequality in the United States and the situations of poverty and danger that unfortunately quite a number of Black and other POCs experience in this country, if I'm thinking about karma, I'm not thinking about what is it that they've done in previous lives or previously to deserve this sort of treatment or this sort of circumstance. One, because that sort of view completely misses the point of karma, and two, there's no action that can be done there. Instead, I recommend, and this is how I've often viewed situations, is what can be done in that situation to help. Because when we look at karma as intention or action, then we see that the positive actions and the possibility for change, the possibility for improvement and for growth and for support are there because of cause and effect. So yes, negative actions tend to bring negative results, but the same is true about positive actions. And that is where I feel like we should be focusing, especially if on one hand, we can't piece apart why it is that certain things have come to be. And second, even if we could, the ability or the conditions for changing it are in the present, they're not in the past. One thing, though, that's been really interesting to examine is the research and the work being done on, say, intergenerational trauma. And that, to me, has been pleasantly surprising in that it's shown how even something like past actions or past karma can sort of bear results in the present, is being sort of borne out by other sorts of research or other ways of examining our thoughts and our actions. And on one hand, it's been interesting looking at that in BIPOC communities. And I think a lot of us are aware of how stress and anxiety and certain unhealthy patterns are passed down through families. But the more sort of eye-opening data that's come out is also how that intergenerational trauma has affected everybody and affected people in the dominant white culture as well. Actions of aggression, actions of oppression, of violence, and how that is also passed down. So if we're going to look at, sort of tracing back karma, tracing back the consequences of actions, I think keeping in mind the possibility for change and the possibility for new actions is very important. And that if we do try to trace back, how things have come to be, that we do it with the sort of ability to see that those things aren't fixed. And it's never a situation of blame or judgment, but rather, how can we move through these conditions, knowing that change is possible, and it's possible because of new actions and new fruits in each moment. So I think those are my thoughts for now. And thank you all for your attention.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was very interesting. Bante, Samano. Just throwing out a question there, and then please, we will have some further questions later. But could you just expand a little bit on the whole things around like Holocaust and so on? How do people make sense of that with such trauma in light of karma if they don't have a spiritual practice to ground them? What has been your experience of working with people who don't have a spiritual practice to ground them?
Yeah, it's complicated because so much of spiritual practice is about how we integrate spirituality with our lives, that at least in the beginning, if someone already doesn't have grounding in spirituality or spiritual practice, it's almost like going to a spa for the day. And that's great. And it's relaxing and it's alleviating. But if that's not followed up with, you know, a routine or a regimen of self-care or what have you afterwards, then the effects sort of fizzle out immediately. So I tend to hesitate, you know, if someone is just sort of coming and they're in, you know, a very trying situation, to just pop a pill in their mouth, some advice or some dharma to help fix them, because I've seen that that doesn't tend to work in the long run. But rather, what I would recommend, if someone is feeling sort of the weight of these things, but they're not grounded in spirituality, to rely on community, rely on friends and family and people who can support them in an emotional way with what they're going through.
Thank you. That's
Because
really cool.
yeah, with all the, you know, sort of theory and even sort of the lofty practices that we have, they're all possible because of spiritual friendship and spiritual community, teachers, mentors, etc. And I think everyone can sort of pull on that for a little bit of wisdom.
That's wonderful, and we'll go back to that at the end when we look at the where next. You know, where can people kind of what might they need to do? What's their starting point? What's their next step? So thank you so much. Let's share some appreciation by just putting some words in the chat as a thank you, and we will obviously be asking you some questions later on. So thank you very much. Okay, our next guest speaker is Dharma Karani Vimalasara, and welcome very much. I'm just sharing a little bit. Dr. Valerie, who is an award-winning author of 8 books, including her debut fictional memoir novel called Borrowed Body, and Detox Your Heart, Meditations for Emotional Trauma, and 8-Step Recovery, using Buddhist teachings to overcome addictions. Valerie is a co-founder of an 8-week mindfulness-based addiction recovery program and is one of the new leading African descent voices in the mindfulness arena internationally. So let's put our hands together for Vimalasara.
Thank you for that intro. And just to say, I have 10 books. The most recent editing, African Wisdom, which Sensai in New Voices Talk, Black Liberation Buddhism and Beyond. Yes, the topic of karma. I think if there's one thing that I would like people to go away with, is that karma is not linear. I think with this Christian conditioning, we can have the sense that karma is linear. You do something bad, something's going to happen to you. And I want to quote from the Buddha, because if we think of the most recent Buddha, Shakyamuni, who was born in India, in a country where there was still is a caste system, and he was very political, because he made it very clear it's not your birth that counts, it's your worth. Okay? So let's remember that. Those were the Buddha's words. It's not your birth that counts, it's your worth. Yeah. And I think this is really, really important for those of us who are BAME or BIPOC to actually remember that. Yeah. One of the teachings that I used to struggle with, I don't struggle with now, is that actions have consequences. Now, often when people hear that, they instantly think the consequences are going to be negative. No, it's just saying that actions have consequences. They could be positive, they could be negative, they could be neutral. The reality is, if we do something, there will be a consequence. Yeah. So let's get over it. And, you know, I used to really struggle. It's to have to accept that. That was the struggle, to just accept that actions have consequences. And, you know, sometimes I explain to people, I think, you know, there are those people who do hit and run. And I think, what happens to the mind in that person? It doesn't mean to say if the person did hit and run that actually they're going to drop down dead tomorrow. But what it means is that person who did hit and run, their mind is going to be impacted. Guarantee some of them will be looking in the newspaper, first of all, to see whether the person died. And if the person did die, it's really going to have an impact on the mind. And this, to me, is the karma vipaka, the fruits of our actions. Well, what I wanted to do, because as I've said that one thing I want you to go away with is karma isn't linear. And there's a great Buddhist teaching called the Five Neomas, which is spelled, Neomas is called Niyama. Okay, and we have to take all of this into consideration. Okay, so the first niyama, which is Utta niyama, which basically is the natural laws of the change of season. So as we heard Bante talk about, you know, a natural disaster. Things are going to happen because things change. You know, once upon a time there was an ice age. You know, when I think about, you know, we're in a crisis. You know, climate change. Yes, we have accelerated it, but you know, we have to realize that actually the climate's going to change anyway. You know, we've accelerated it. I want to be aware of that. And things change. Where I live, you know, where I used to live in Alberta in Canada, that was tropical once upon a time. Now it lives under 8 months of snow. So when these mudslides happen, and when these floods happen, and when these fires happen, they're going to happen because everything changes. Okay? It's not because, oh, you know, because these people were bad and it's happened to them. The reality is what we have to remember is you know, when the Buddha talks about dukkha, and I love the way Ken MacLeod defines dukkha, the struggle, that we're going to struggle, that we are going to, you know, the reality is we're going to get sick, we're going to die, and we're going to age. That's got nothing to do with karma, unless it's the karma of being a human being. So let's talk about that there's a karma of being a human being. And the karma of being a human being is you're going to die, okay? We're all going to die, okay? We're all future ancestors. And we're going to get sick and we're going to age. Yeah, it's going to happen. Yeah. So so I've moved on to the second niyama, which is the bija niyama, B-I-J-A. And I spelled niyama, N-I-Y-M-A. And that's the biology of the body, yeah? So we're going to get viruses. We're going to get more viruses. When Omicron goes, when COVID goes, there are going to be more viruses because that is the biology of the body, of the plants, of the flowers, of the leaves, of the fruits, yeah? So this is going to happen. So we take that into account. So you can actually think like somebody, let's look at somebody who gets COVID. It's not because they were a bad person, they got COVID. It's because they got a human body. They may have gone out outside. It could have been raining because of the seasons, you know, it raining, and then they were, you know, with a group of other people and something happened and they got it. Not because they were a bad person, okay? So then we move into the Karma Niyama, okay? Karma or Kamma, the Karma Niyama, the Law of Moral Causation, okay? And so then we have to think about our volition, our volitional thoughts, our volitional words and deeds, because all of this does create energy. Sometimes I say to people, how many of you, if you put your hand up, and how many of you would say you are happy for anybody to hear what's going on in your mind? Just imagine if people could actually hear what's going on in your mind. And you know what? We're lucky that we're born in this time, because in 30, 40 years' time, people are going to be able to hear that, because they've got the chip that they're going to be putting into people's brains, okay? So we're kind of lucky, yeah? But just imagine. And, what we have to remember, that when we have a mind full of hatred, let's go to, the Dhammapada, where it said, they beat me, they hurt me, yeah, they insulted me. Those who harbour such thoughts, only hatred will stir. So it's not saying that hatred is going to come to you, but it's saying that hatred is going to stir in your mind. That's the karma vipaka of the volition of your thoughts. They beat me, they hurt me, they insulted me, they beat me. Those who don't harbour such thought, only peace will stir. And just try it for yourself. I remember a friend saying to me, he had been angry with somebody for years, that somebody had done him this thing. And then, I don't know, about 6 years later, they ended up on the same panel. That happens. Somebody you don't want to see, and you end up on the same panel. And during the break, he went up to the person and said, I've been really angry with you for 6 years. And you know what the person turned around and said? I didn't feel it. Yeah. So that's the karma, yeah? And I could see somebody smiling, and it's tragic that there are those of us our parents have died. They've been gone 10, 15 years, and we're still angry with them. We're still angry with them. What's the point? They can't feel it. They're dead. They're gone. They're buried. And yet we are still holding this burden, this hot coal of anger. So in a way, sometimes anger in the text is described as a piece of hot coal, and it burns us inside, it burns us outside. Yeah. And then we have the Dharma Niyamas, yeah. And the Dharma Niyamas is really, it's talking about the teachings of the Buddha. And, when I think of the Dharma, I see those teachings, the Dharma teachings that point to the truth. Yeah. It's seeing things how they really are, not how we want them to be. And the majority of us are seeing things how they want them to be. And I was saying when I was teaching last week, I was saying, the biggest, we were looking at ethics and looking at actually when we're looking at ethics, we can go into stealing or being unskillful or not skillful. Actually, there's something to do with ethics when we are refusing not to see things as they really are, where we want to see them how we want to see them. Yeah. And we can't, because we're closed down, we're narrowed down. We're not seeing the other person. We have become separate and other. And so, of course, there's going to be a karmic consequence, because we are interconnected. We're not separate. Yeah. And when I think about what's my karma as a BIPOC BAME person, my karma is that because I have, I'm the reason why I'm hesitating here is how do I want to say this? Because I'm on the path, because I can see a bit more clearly, and now I have the privilege to stand on the shoulders of the people who came before me, because it wasn't so long ago that I could be this BIPOC BAME person in any parts of the world and be free how I am. And so now that I'm on the path, I can see so clearly that my emancipation is tied up in your emancipation. I cannot be completely free until my BIPOC BAME people are free. Just as Avalokiteshvara, I won't go into the full story of Avalokiteshvara, but what we know is that it said he went to the land of Tibet and vowed that he would not come out of Samadhi until all the people had been relieved of suffering. That was his vow. Because he knew this is the Bodhisattva vow. That's part of the Bodhisattva vow. Because our freedom is tied up in each other. How can I, so, I've kind of woken up a little tiny bit, and saying woken up a little tiny bit, see things more clearly. How can I just say, kick my legs back and think of England, as the Brits say? How can I say that? When, my brothers are being killed on the street, where still there isn't equity, So, and so for me, one of the ways that I work with this karmic load, and I love the load. Karma doesn't have to be a bad thing. Karma is weighty, but karma doesn't have to be weighty in a negative thing. I love that actually it's to be of service, and I can see that really clearly, to be of service. Moving into the Chitta Niyama, the fifth Niyama, which is, Chitta means mind, heart, the state of consciousness. And you could see it as, it's like the law of mental activity. When we do the practice of the Anapanasati, it's in that second tetrad where we need to become aware of the mental activity. So it concerns our thoughts and our perceptions. So it's moving into, finding the emptiness of the skandhas. And, in a way, this is where we try to move away of thinking that there is an I, There's a karmic consequence thinking that the mind is me. There's a karmic consequence of thinking that that my identities are fixed, okay? This is where I go with karma. And one of the things, I love about the teachings is that my identities have become looser. We have to remember that when the prince woke up to the truth, the words that they said was, these labels that identify me as a Buddha, a God, a Deva, a Sura, a man, have been destroyed by me. The Heart Sutra, one of the most common texts that's recited all over the world. The Bodhisattva of Compassion, when they meditated deeply, saw the emptiness of all 5 skandhas and sundered the bonds that caused them suffering. Okay? So in the end, this is where we begin to purify this karmic weight of seeing the emptiness of the body, of the thoughts, of perceptions, of volitions. When we come back to what is karma, to me, simply, actions have consequence, period, nothing more. And we have to take into account the 5 Neomas. I am complete. Thank you.
Thank you so much, beloved Vimalasara. Let's share our gratitude and appreciation for those profound words of wisdom. What really resonated for me was our freedom is is, you know, it's tied up. It's not in the personal, it's in the collective, that interconnectedness, that we are all one in this interconnected, wonderful web. I see it like the spider's web, you know, we're all kind of part of that.
Indra's net, yeah.
Thank you so much, sis. And, you know, how liberating it is, you know, that we can free ourselves from those fixed labels that we and others put on us. You know, thank you very much. I know that you have to go, and we've been really truly blessed, and I would have loved to hear the discourse with the question and answers. Are you okay to take one question now,
sure,
before you leave?
One question.
Okay, so if anyone has a question that they'd like to open up their mic and just ask, if they can raise their hand, and Tash will just name the person, and we can ask that, you know, they can unmute and ask that question of Vimalasara before she leaves. So anybody with a raised hand, Tash? Or if someone doesn't know how to raise their hand, they can just unmute and greet and share their question.
No questions.
Do you have a question?
Time?
Oh, there is. Adiola.
Adiola.
Adiola. Okay,
oh,
Adiola.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Vimalasara. Thank you for coming today. So I suppose I really like what you said today about actions have, that there's a response. There will be a response to actions that you take. And I was thinking just about how that might be thought about more generally in terms of things we do and things that happen because of things we do, whether deemed to be good or bad. I just wanted just a bit more of a perspective on that, because it's making me think a little bit about how to the world around us, and how how we feel about the world around us when we bring up strong emotions take us over. And I don't mean anger, I just mean strong emotion. It always feels like there's something about a wave, a backwards and forwards wave, to kind of balance that out. I wanted to just get your perspective on that.
Sure. I'll what resonates, I start with where you ended, that it's okay to have a strong emotion that arises, and so the work is to not to push that away, and to not to resist it, because when we resist it, we act out of the emotion. And when a strong emotion arises, it's perhaps not the best time to go into communication with somebody. I know when sometimes I do, there's a strong emotion, and I get activated. And I'm hurrying here because the knock is just about to come on my door. What I'd say is, in Buddhism, we don't think of good or bad, you know. So what I'll end with, because the knock has come on my door, is that whatever you do, ask yourself, does it bring you joy and peace, or does it bring you misery? And that's your barometer, rather than thinking of good or bad. And I'm really sorry I have to go.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Beautiful energies, and thank you. Walk in peace, and see you again very soon, I'm sure. So wow, that was wonderful from Vimalasara. How's everybody? Put in the chat how they're feeling. Enlightened, inspired. What is one word that reflects how you are at this time, at this moment? And we are moving on. Appreciative for being here. Thank you, Guyasaki. Great to have you on. Grateful, wonderful. Okay, so we are moving on with our next speaker, who is Sensei Alex Kakuyo. And a little bit about Sensei. He's a Buddhist teacher and breathwork facilitator. Sensei was a former Marine and served in Iraq and Afghanistan before finding Buddhism. He holds a BA in philosophy and is an author of Perfectly Ordinary Buddhist Teachings for Everyday Life. Don't we all need that? And you can hear more of his work at www.thesameoldzen.com. So let's invite and welcome, share some energies with Sensei Alex Kakuyo.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. So as I thought about this evening's topic, as I thought about systemic racism, systemic oppression, and how they relate to karma, my mind went back to the teachings of Yogacara Buddhism, specifically the teachings we find in the Abhidharma Samuccaya, also known as the Compendium of the Higher Teaching written by Asanga. And what Asanga teaches is that our universe as it exists is birthed out of something called the storehouse consciousness. This is also known as the Dharmakaya, or the wisdom body of Buddha. So seeds of karma are planted in the storehouse consciousness. And when conditions and timing are right, those seeds ripen into actions, into causes and effects in our world. So the simplest example I can give you of karma is several decades ago, my mother and father came together and I was born as a result. Now, the reason this teaching is so important, there are three reasons. The first is we need to understand that this is where all karma comes from. Everything in our universe is born of the storehouse consciousness and returns to it after a certain amount of time. This is the impermanence that we are told about in the three marks of existence. And how this relates to systems of oppression, systems of racism, is that there are two types of karma. There's indifferent karma, meaning karma that has nothing to do with us. And then there is effacious karma, which is karma that's born of our own actions. So the sun rising in the east and setting in the west, that's indifferent karma. It has nothing to do with me. Me choosing to put on boots and a heavy coat because there's snow outside is effacious karma. That's me making choices and then experiencing the results of those choices. And as people of color, I find that one source of suffering for us is we've been trained by our society to internalize indifferent karma. Meaning that if there are systems, if there are corporations, if there are entities that do things that are unkind or unwise, then we immediately think that it's on us to fix those systems. That it's on us to figure out what the problem is. It's on us to adjust ourselves, change our voice, change our way of dress, change our manner of speaking so that we can fit in better with these systems of oppression. But if we understand the difference between effacious karma and indifferent karma, then we understand that what the system is doing has little to nothing to do with us. So we are not responsible for, we are not required to fix what the system is doing, what it's done to other people or what it's done to us. And as I look at our history in the UK, in the United States, all over the world, what I see is time and time and time again is people of color trying to adjust, trying to assuage the negative effects of indifferent karma that isn't their doing, that isn't of their making. And what that happens as a result is that we feel that we are being punished for something that we're not doing correctly. Now, this is the second point we need to understand about karma, is that it's often explained as reward and punishment, right? So if we do something good, then we'll be rewarded by karma. If we do something bad, we'll be punished for our karma. And that's not correct. Karma is neutral. It's simply cause and effect, right? So if I reach out and touch a hot stove and it burns me, I'm not being punished by the stove. That's just what happens when you touch a hot stove. And I need to understand that. So in the same way, if we're living in a racist society and we feel grief or we feel anger or we feel sadness, if we misunderstand karma as this sort of Judeo-Christian notion of crime and punishment, then we feel that we're doing something wrong because we're angry, because we're sad, because we're depressed. And once again, we're internalizing the indifferent karma that has nothing to do with us. But if we understand that karma is simply cause and effect, seeds ripening when times and conditions are right, then we understand that if we are feeling anger in a moment, then anger is what we're supposed to be feeling in that moment. If we're feeling sadness because of something, then sadness is what we're supposed to be feeling in that moment. More than that, it could not be any other way. Because all of the conditions, the causes and effects, the karma that have led to that moment have made it so that we can't feel anything other than what we feel. So oftentimes when I speak with BIPOC individuals, they ask me, well, how can I stop being angry, in the face of police brutality? How can I stop feeling sad over the racist messages that I see on social media? How can I deal with this grief that I'm feeling over this loved one I have who's being persecuted? And what I always instruct them is that first, you need to stop trying to stop feeling what you're feeling. Stop trying to not be angry. Stop trying to not be sad. Stop trying to not experience your grief. Because we can't change indifferent karma. We can only learn to deal with it, to work with it skillfully. So whatever we're feeling in the moment is exactly what we're supposed to be feeling. It's normal to feel these things. And if we understand that it's normal to feel these things, a lot of weight goes off of our shoulders in that moment because we no longer feel guilty because, well, I'm a good spiritual practitioner. I'm not supposed to get angry, which isn't true. If we read the sutras, the Buddha got angry, Shinran Shonin was angry, Dogen got angry quite a bit. And they got angry, and this is important, they got angry in the face of and in a response to injustice. So understanding the nature of karma, understanding the nature of systems and how they work, if we're experiencing anger, the goal isn't to stop feeling that, but to understand why we're feeling it. What is happening in my environment that is causing me to react this way? And is there something that I can do about it? And maybe there's not. Maybe this is indifferent karma, just like the sun rising in the east and setting in the west. And all I can do is try to limit the negative effects as much as I can. As BIPOC people living in a society where we are the minority, where we hold a limited amount of power, frankly, that is the situation sometimes. And we have to give ourselves the space to accept that. Now, there are other times where we can do something about what we're experiencing, where we can make a difference. And in those opportunities, we have the ability to act, to change things for the better. We see this in the example of Dr. Martin Luther King. We see this in the example of Gandhi. We see this in the example of Muhammad Ali, of Malcolm X, etc., Harriet Tubman. Individuals who accepted the world as it was, but at the same time saw that moment where they could change things for the better. Now, even there, however, there is still some danger that exists. Because even in the face of a facious karma, we're still impacted by indifferent karma, right? So I can't stop the snow from falling from the sky, but I can choose to wear a coat and heavy boots, right? And as long as my focus on simply being aware of the weather and dressing appropriate for it, then I'm okay. But if my mindset changes and I start to think, well, as long as I dress warmly enough when I go outside, then no snow will fall down from the ground or from the sky. Now I'm suffering again, because now I'm not understanding the difference between indifferent karma and facious karma. So when we do our work in our communities, whatever that looks like, whether that's going to a march or signing a petition or checking in on a loved one or raising our children so that they're healthy and happy, whatever our daily work looks like, we have to somewhat disconnect from the end result of that work. We do the work just to do the work, not because we think that these systems of oppression will crumble immediately. Because there's a lot of karma that we're dealing with, hundreds of years, thousands of years, depending on the country you live in, of racist karma, of sexist karma, of homophobic karma. And that karma isn't going to go away overnight. There are lots and lots of causes and conditions that have to be created in order to assuage that. And we can do our part, absolutely, and we should. But if we unnecessarily take on that burden of, I need to fix this myself, and it needs to be fixed today, then that's no different than us going outside with a coat and boots on and wondering why it's still snowing. So that's very, very important to understand. And finally, my last point around karma is that if we understand the teachings of the Abhidharma Samukaya, also known as the Compendium of the Higher Teaching, then we understand that karma doesn't just exist within individuals. People have karma, animals have karma, organizations have karma, countries. Everything that exists in the universe has karma. And that karma comes together and breaks apart in a myriad of ways in every second of every day. So there are going to be times when people do terrible things, but good still happens to them. There are going to be times when people do very good things and they still suffer as a result. Because we have to understand, again, that karma is neutral. It's cause and effect. So maybe we are doing everything we're supposed to be doing, but we are affected by the karma of a family, of a country, of an organization that is causing us to suffer in spite of what we're doing. So if we understand that, then we understand, and the history of the United States especially starts to make a lot more sense. Why are all these evil racist people becoming judges and doctors and lawyers? Why are they holding positions of authority and power? Well, that's because the karma of the country is pushing them in that direction. Okay? And because the country has karma, that means that us doing the right thing can't be the goal of, well, I'm going to do the right thing so the country does the right thing. Because the country's karma is separate from my karma. We have to learn to do the right thing simply because it's the right thing. And we have to take our joy specifically from that. Not from what the television tells us, not from what social media tells us, not from what the government is doing, what laws they're passing, etc. Because if our joy is tied to what things are happening outside of us, those things outside of our control, then we will never be happy. And we will never be satisfied. We will never feel safe. But if our joy is tied to our own effacious karma, the work I'm doing every day, I woke up and I got my kids to school on time. I brought my spouse coffee while they were working. I shoveled the driveway for my neighbor. If we find our joy in those little things, those things that we are in control of, then what's happening outside of us matters less and less. Not to say it doesn't matter at all, not to say that we shouldn't care, but focusing on ourselves and our own karma, and maybe even the karma of our community, can be very healthy and life-affirming in the face of a country or a government that is working for our non-existence. So I think I'll end with that. Amitabha.
Peace. Thank you so much, Sensei. Thank you so much. Let's share our appreciations in the chat. You know, words of wisdom. And it's really powerful that you talked about being able to distinguish between that universal law that's already there, such as gravity, for instance, you know, and it's there. If you don't apply it and you think you can just open a window and step outside, you'll be fooled, you know. However, our preparedness to make sure that we're safe, you know, when we're actually engaging with the laws around the seasons or snow or fire or whatever, you know, there's that distinction there. Thank you so much. And also to know that we don't have to try to fight these systems. We become self-aware and we work on our inner world in order to have a ripple effect on the outer world, and the families and communities around us. Thank you very much, much appreciated. And we'll get to ask you a few questions in the Q&A side of things. We're just going to have a very quick comfort break, folks, literally just 2 minutes. Grab some hot tea or have a toilet break, and we'll see you back in just 2 minutes, okay? We're going to listen to our other two phenomenal speakers and have an opportunity to ask some questions. Thank you.
And just to say, if you've got any questions for Alex, please put it in the chat. Thank you.
La 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 la. La la la.
Welcome back, Will.
I was just sitting, listening, just being still with some of all that wisdom, all that knowledge.
Hasn't it been incredible? Hasn't it been incredible?
It's just blown me away, and I know I'm going to be listening to this whole recording. I think we will put the whole recording live.
I think so. I don't want to miss a second of it.
Yeah, no, so much rich stuff there, and maybe we might go over just to warn people, if people do have questions, to get people to feel free to stay a little bit longer so they can ask.
Okay.
But there's
Wonderful.
so much stuff there. I see also Bernadette joined us early.
Welcome.
Just wanted to acknowledge
Welcome.
come into the space.
Welcome. Good to have you on.
Have you guys met?
Thank you. No, we haven't. Sorry, I just got the time
just
mixed
felt the
up with-
energy, felt the vibes. So great.
Thank
I
you.
look forward to hearing you in a while. So let's just check that everybody's is back. Just wanted to just do some health and safety around the Zoom and our eyes and make sure that, you know, we can get back into that focus of active listening. Great. Okay. All right, so welcome back, everyone. And yeah, the last few speakers have been phenomenal, and I'm sure, you know, we're just going to get even further insight now as we welcome Dr. Santhong Dhammakaro to share with us, just share a little bit of a short bio with you. Dr. Dhammakaro is a Buddhist monk in the Thai Theravada tradition for 25 years, where he has received extensive experience of teaching Dharma and meditation, coupled with rigorous academic education. And I could list all the qualifications that he had, but we'll be here all night. He holds a master's in science and religious studies and a PhD in theology and religious studies, and many, many more qualifications. And it's a real privilege to have you on this evening. So let's put our hands together. Dr. Santhong Dhammakaro, welcome.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me. I would say that in this peaceful space, you know, yeah, and as I have heard, you know, from all speakers, and I think very well spoken, you know, about karma, you know, it's like I can cover all, you know, that, but I would like to just edit, you know, that karma, this is, I say karma, this is in Pali term, that Pali root kara, that mean to do or to act. Maybe you have heard the word karma. You know, karma is the Sanskrit root mean kri. You know, kri means to do or to act, the same. You know, and I think as we have heard so far, you know, that like the how it works, like cause and effect, you know, or intention, and with the intention that if good intention produces good consequence, something like that, you know, that I think all speakers cover that, you know, but I would like to add, you know, some point that we should look at on karma perspective, you know, like equality, you know, this is one thing that we should bear in mind, that the action or the karma just keep the consequence, you know, not depend on like a birth, you know, this is like an equality. No matter who you are the king or holy man or rich man or poor man, the karma will produce its consequence according to the intention. So this is like a equality, you know, that just happened to everyone, you know. But maybe not everyone believe in this, you know, that maybe based on their belief or something like that, you know. And the second point, this is like karma is like the second chance, you know, for all human beings, you know. I think it's it's human, you know, as we have heard, you know, we might do something wrong or committed something wrong, but anyway, we have the second chance, you know, as the karma that we have learned, and we know when we know that we make mistake, you know, we could start over again by not repeating it and make it right. And this is like the second chance that all we have, you know, that. And another point, this is like karma is like a human ability, you know, and everyone can do. I mean, like we can improve ourselves, we can develop ourselves. This is the thing, you know, like the equality that I have said before. No matter who you are, you know, you take responsibility for your own karma or your own action. That means you reap what you sow, and this is very clear, you know. And Another thing that I would like to say that where's karma, the origin of karma, you know, I think Sensei also cover about that. You know, this is from like a mindfulness, from consciousness, you know, or we say, you know, like from the mind, because consciousness and mind is like the synonym, you know, and the Pali term that we say, you know, where the karma from is we call sahachata karma. So we were born according to our own karma, you know, or we can say that we were born with our karma. If we have no karma, that we have no rebirth, like in the scripture or in the text, you know, say like if we become enlightened, something like that, no desire at all, you know, that, and then we have no rebirth. That means we attend the nibbana that we say in the scripture. And this is the first thing, you know, that we should bear in mind, that the karma produce consequences, and also that we were born because of our karma. And like I have said, the Pali term, the sahachata karma, this is the one. So this is we should, you know, that maybe we just correct ourselves that what a karma we do, you know, and if we do it right or make it right, we have no more worry, you know. But if we think that, oh, this is something not right, or maybe we get some warning from a sage or from master or from teacher, something like that, we have the second chance, you know, that we can solve it. You know, we can change our way, our path to the right one. So this is the second chance that we have in this life as a human being. So we can change ourselves, we can improve our life, you know. And this is remind me of a story. Maybe that I add the story so that it make the karma clearer, you know. And this is the story called A Holy Man and His Karma. And this is like once upon a time, you know, that there was an artist who wanted to draw a picture or a symbol of a good object or goodness. He had no idea how to draw the picture and try to find a model to use, but he could not find. One day he went to the temple and happened to see a holy man whose appearance very calm and pleasing. So he offered to pay the holy man a very good price to be his model. The holy man accepted the price offer, and the artist started drawing this holy man model who personifies goodness, and everything was fine, and the drawing turned out very well and successful. The people liked his drawing, and he became well known, and because of this drawing, people call him a great artist. And later on, he thought of drawing something evil, opposite of goodness, and he tried to find another model. It was not that easy to find someone who looked evil, so he searched everywhere, even in the prisons. Finally, he found a prisoner in one prison who looks very, very much like an evil devil. And he asked him for to be his model. That prisoner cried out loud, "Why is me again? Do you not remember me? I was a holy man who became your model a few months ago. Now you ask me to be your evil model." The artist looked stunned at that man, and he could not remember him. And he said to himself that this is impossible. The holy man looked very calm, peaceful, and wise, but this man looked horrible. And he asked that prisoner that, "Are you really the holy man who was my goodness model a few months ago?" He said, "Yes, I was a holy man. Do you know what happened to me? Because of you, from being a holy man, I turned into evil man." The artist asked him, what with surprise, how come I did that to you? Your appearance very calm, peaceful, and wise. And he replied that, when I was your model, you gave me a good price, and I spent that money in the wrong way. I became addicted to drugs and did lots of bad things. I could not stop myself. When there was no money left, I robbed and harmed people. Now I end up here, as you find me. The artist listened to the man's life with sadness and said to himself, goodness and evil are just in all human minds, without exception. The growth of each of these qualities depends on what it is fed. So this is very true, that goodness and evil both present in human mind. So as I have mentioned earlier, that we were born without karma, that if we do something, bad, and the consequence gonna be bad without exception, because like in karma, the karma word, this is originated in India, exactly, not in the West or nowhere, and this is the teaching, and also the teaching that the consequence is not like maybe not happen now, or like give bear the fruit now, maybe later on, like in the teaching of the Buddha, I said that like a nanakanika karma, maybe it can bear its fruit in the future, even next life, So we just bear in our mind that if we do good karma, the consequence gonna be bad, and the moral of this story that we can see, even a holy man, he can receive a bad fruit of his own karma. So it not depends on like a birth or any like a family or anything, So like I have said earlier, that this is like a equality, no exception at all. It depends on our intention or our the intention that we put in our action. If we do good action, and then we can relax, But if we do bad action, and we cannot relax, because the karma or the fruit of the karma, the consequence of karma, is like our shadow. It's just following us, And when it's time, like ready, to bear fruit to us, then we have nothing to do, we just accept it. That's it. But what we can do, that we can bear in our mind, and we can think first, like we say, first thing first. And I think also that maybe people don't understand that. Sometimes people misunderstand that karma is like something, like a punishment, or reward, something like that, But it's not something like that. It's just the consequence. That's it, And like the meaning of karma also, maybe people have heard, oh, this is like a negativity or positivity, something like that. I would like to mention like some simple saying, like even in English, that relevant to the meaning of karma, like you become what you eat, you become what you think, and what goes around comes around, and we reap what we sow. And this is very simple, that we can understand easily that what the karma look like and what its fruit look like, And this is the thing, and we should check ourselves as well, because the karma or from the story, like a goodness and evil is in our mind, not from anybody. Nobody can inspire us, but we have to think, we have to be wise, we have to be a good learner or good student, so that we can warn ourselves, we can teach ourselves, anyway, that two way that we can study, like today, is I think it's a privilege, or thank you for the team, that asking me to join. This is, I can listen, I can listen the good words, that from all the speaker, and even from in the comments as well, that this is we learn from others. And this can be a good lesson for us to understand karma or to understand other things as well. And then the second thing, we have to reflect on the teaching, like what we have heard today. I think it's great teaching, it's great speaking that we have heard so far. And now I would like to end my talk and maybe give people to ask questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Santhong. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. And as you say, there are these immutable laws, they are fixed. And it's about correct action that will reap the rewards. And, I always try to remember this cauldron, really, and what am I feeding? What am I feeding into this cauldron? What am I putting into this cauldron in order for not only myself to eat, but everyone else to eat around me? So thank you so much for your words of wisdom, and we'll get an opportunity to ask you some more questions in a while. So we're truly blessed.
Okay, thank you.
So last but certainly not least is our next speaker, Dr. Bernadette Kareke of Guyashiki. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Just share a little bit about you with our audience. Dr. Bernadette grew up in Sudan, Nigeria, and Zimbabwe, and now works in London as a senior educational psychologist, yoga and mindfulness teacher. Her doctoral research focused on children's experiences of mindfulness, and her picture book, My Mindful Little One, Bedtime, helps parents and children to practice mindfulness together. Oh, I'd like to hear about that, please. Pop that in the chat. I'm a grandma of 4, I think I need it. Guyashaki is a member of the Triratna Buddhist order and engages people of color in mindful practice. So let's share our warm welcome to Guyashiki.
Hi, hello, thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Thank you for all the talks as well. Before I start, I just want to check, are we finishing at 7:30? Because on the program.
Yeah, we were just saying that because of the question and answers, and give you a little bit of time to make sure you have your time and space, we'll probably finish about 5 or 10 minutes later, if that's okay with everyone.
Okay, so thank you. So I work. Well, I'm a ordained Buddhist. I also teach mindfulness and aspects of Buddhism and so on. But my main role is also in education. And I was just reflecting on just the vast range of things that have been said. And I did prepare a talk, but I think most of it, I think about 80% is covered. So and there was quite a lot that was really moving. And so I was sitting here sort of reflecting and thinking about how we are and what's the most so if the present moment right here and right now is the kind of opportunity to act right here and now, what action would we make right now, what that would create, because we understand that our actions that we make, if we make them volitionally, if we make them intentionally, if they're ones that we do have some control over, ones that we can have an effect with, what might those actions be if we were to take them now, right at this moment? And I think, bearing in mind that so much has been covered, I think from clarifying the myths around karma. Essentially, it's not about fate or destiny. It's about there's also a difference between karma and the actions of the outcomes of karma. So any actions that we make intentionally, those start to have a ripple that goes out and have an effect of their own. And accumulative ones over time might have effect over other people, and we start to see sort of systems arising over time. And some of these systems may have skillful be skillful intentions, bringing about peace and harmony and freedom from suffering. And some of those intentional actions may be arising from attachments like greed, hatred, and delusion. And I think those repeated over time have we can see have had disastrous consequences in, you know, for example, colonialism across the world. We've had traumatized beings going across to the places where I've lived and set up. My father's family, grew up, ended up in an apartheid situation, and then, they were displaced and they had to move, and so hence I was born in the UK. It was sort of like this whole, and sort of, I suppose, the fruits of these actions of greed, hatred, and delusion coming out. And I think what's been really helpful is just hearing how there are just so many different levels of karma, that it's, what exactly can we take responsibility for, and in this moment. So there's, and also there might be some bits that we take too much responsibility for. And, like we talked about that, the indifferent karma, we take some responsibility where it was out of our control, that there's no need to feel shame or blame around that as well. And, and strikingly enough, a lot of these things do come up in the Pali Canon, and again and again, I just find these little phrases that really see that it arises from a trap of falling in what they call wrong view. It's there's so many levels to this. I was just sitting thinking, this could be a course. This could be I could take the videos and we could make a program with them and really sort of try and unpick each one and look at how we could bring them into our lives. And as the last speaker, Sang Dong, was saying, this is an opportunity. So although unskillful actions arose from greed, hatred, and delusion, have caused a lot of suffering and the systemic oppression that a lot of us experience, in the same way, skillful actions are an opportunity in our lives at each moment to done intentional, volitional, skillful actions are going to have consequences. And so I think the understanding karma is also about understanding it brings hope. It brings hope, and but maybe not even just hope, but there's a sense that they will have consequences. So just to add my final point, which I thought was, I said about 80% of it was covered. My final point that I thought I might bring in is that a lot of this teaching came from a perspective where karma has repercussions, and our existence does not begin with our first breath and end with our last. There is this. That's just a really tiny fraction of our existence. Our existence does not begin with our first breath and end with our last. That's quite a materialistic kind of way. And I would say, but in terms of the niyamas, of course, our physical body's biological processes will stop, and the physical earth elements of our body will go back. The water elements will go back to water, and so on. So those bits will happen. So if we were to take that to heart, then I think there's just three levels in which to take this on. There's number one is basically we kind of got to get on with the nitty-gritty of life, and how do we just ensure that we have what we need to live. Okay, so that's the first step, what we need to live. The second level is, okay, mindfulness. How can we bring awareness to where there are these opportunities for choices? That's the second level, bringing awareness. And then we can look at the wheel of life, and then those moments when we building awareness so that there's more opportunity for intention. And then the third is when, you know, we've got what we need, we've got an opportunity to act. How can we, you know, what is the best we can do in each moment? And this is where this transcendental kind of connection may have an opportunity to come into our lives. And I think it's quite key. I mean, it sounds a bit cliche, but love and compassion, insight experiences. When, you know, sometimes we're hungry, we've got to eat. Okay, now we're no longer hungry and eat. You know, we've put that jacket on, we're warm. Okay, what's the opportunity now in this moment? Awareness. How best can we live our lives? You know, and even it might even just be sensing and sending out love for oneself if one's suffering, building up your resources, and connecting to something that will unfold over time. And for me, another word came up, and that as love and compassion is community, connecting with others, and that we're not alone. We're not alone, and we do this together. So that's what note I'll end on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, beloved. And that was really insightful. Things that we can take away and start applying. Or if we were applying them, we may have forgotten, and we're just back on track with, you know, just to stay grounded, so that we can live our lives with that peace and joy, that love, that compassion, that kindness. Thank you so much. Let's share our appreciation in the chat. Wonderful, beautiful energies.
Everyone.
Thank you. So we have at that time, and it is 7:32, but what I'm going to do is I've got some questions that were posed, and some people may want to ask a question live. So what I'm asking you to do, if you would like to ask a question live, if you can raise your hand in the Zoom, so at least Tash will be able to call you out and you can unmute yourself. There's one question I already had that was sent in privately, and it says, okay, could you explain if race is a product of karma? So I presume race, ethnicity, is this a product of karma? Who'd like to answer that? Feel free. We just pop everyone on a gallery view, and then anyone can speak to that then. Any of our presenters. So Guyashiki, would you like to share?
Hi, yes. So I was just reflecting on this quite a lot. Is race a product of karma? And so it is a product of karma, but it's sort of like, oh, it's such a strong one, isn't it? I think it's such a strong one because okay, there's the biological bit that your skin color just changes according to the sun and your genetics. Okay, so there's this biological processes, and that's one level of it. The bija niyama kind of just like a biological process. Your skin, you know, you have genetics. Your skin is born a certain color, and it gets darker or lighter depending on the amount of sun. It's to do with vitamin D production and where our ancestors lived. If they lived nearer the equator, you know, they didn't need to produce as much, so they didn't need to let as much. They could absorb the sunlight, so it didn't penetrate through. Anyway, I watched a whole thing on this on YouTube. But in terms of racial identity, racial classifications, I mean, some of it has really just been constructed to out of greed, hatred, and delusion, and setting boundaries and barriers between people as well. So in a very simple way, I would say. So it is a result of karma, but there's different types of karma. There's so many different types of karma.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone wants to add anything.
A social construct then, yes.
Yeah, over time.
Thank you very much. Okay, is there anyone with their raised hands would like to ask a question? Or is someone liking to respond to that as well?
I just wanted to add
Bante?
one quick thing, if possible, and thank you. I totally agree with Dr. Bernadette. but also to say that it's the result of, so there's race, but what I hear from the question is the injustices one experiences due to race the cause of karma? That's what I hear behind the question. And to that, I would say that any injustice or any suffering experienced because of one's race, because of one's skin color, is due to other people's unskillfulness. So just like how Sensei brought up, there are things that other people do that we internalize. That's that moment where one can recognize, oh, what's happening is someone else's unwholesome thought, speech, or action taking place. I'm not the cause of that. I'm not responsible for that. And it will still hurt. It'll still sting. It will still anger. But it's not our fault in that. And then with there's we don't have to feel like the victim. We don't have to feel powerless. We don't have to feel like we're just at the whim of other people or nature, but rather seeing that this is a choice someone else is making. It reminds me of how language around enslavement is sort of changing, where it's changing from, oh, these were slaves to these were enslaved people. So these were people who were made into slaves or put into the position of being slaves by someone else. They didn't deserve it, they didn't ask for it, and it wasn't their fault. And I think we can think of karma in the same way. I do have to run though, so thank you
so much.
everyone.
It's been a real blessing meeting you and hearing your insights, and I'm sure we will invite you again to this platform. So let's share our appreciation before Bhante Lee. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Okay, so have we got any raised hands for a live question? Tash?
Anyone got a question?
Okay, there's a few here that I had written down from the chats earlier, the private chat. How is gender determined in terms of karma? So I'm not quite sure if anyone can qualify what that question, expand on that a bit. That could be how is sexism and gender-related oppressions determined in terms of karma. Anyone like to speak to that?
I could, but I'm also free for someone else too.
Do you want to get the ball rolling, and then maybe Sangklong could speak up and extend that?
Yeah. So it comes to the complexity of cost of complexity of it. I mean, there's gender as opposed to the sort of like your biological physical characteristics. And I mean, I think there's something about your lived experience, how that is in your embodied lived experience, and then out of that is a sort of your experience itself can be named. There might be a lot of experience that doesn't have the names and the words and the definitions around it. So we may grow up in a culture or a community that labels certain experiences in this way. So we might have words to describe. So if you have a certain body, you might be called, and it tends to be the norm, tends to be this binary definition of what gender is. But as we're becoming more and more awareness is coming to this, it's sort of pointing out that perhaps that binary definition doesn't perhaps capture all experiences. And then I think when it comes to diversity and understanding, it's how do we, it's sort of noticing when a dominant culture starts to ignore or overlook or oppress or suppress or even reduce the language around certain range of our human experiences. So the realm of what's called normal is sort of becomes narrower and narrower, and starts to not only it's sort of, so what I'm hoping, I'm thinking about that process of narrowing and oppression and everything that comes around it, that that's something that's created, I think it's willed over time, because there's certain privileges that do come by suppressing certain groups of other beings. I mean, whether they're human or non-human beings, certain privileges can come, and I think then that can perpetuate that. I mean, so I think there's something to be, so that's the process of how it kind of arises, but then how we can create the karma to dissolve that, so that it other more kind of welcoming and diverse karmic consequences arise. I think this is the bit in process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Santong, would you like to expand or share anything in relation to that question before we move on?
Yeah. I'll do. Yeah, I think related to karma, that about gender. I think this is like a name, or label anyway. But behind that, if we focus on the karma, because karma is a two thing, karma. We say action and reaction, So related to gender, what we gonna act, because this is like an individual, this is individual, a gender. I think now people are free to choose, to be, okay, even like I born as a man, but I have a choice, because maybe genetic or something, I would like to be a lady or something, something else. But this is like a choice. But the karma, what we gonna do, if we still like create good karma, we do good karma, we do not harm any people. I once in the Thai temple, and Thai, like I would say lady boy, asked me, this is something wrong, that happened to me. This is like my bad karma. He said previous karma, or not, so that I was born like this. I said, I think the past gone, don't mention about this, the past gone. This is what we are now, here and now, whatever who you are, like a lady boy, you not harm any people, you not kill people, don't care about that, you just do your good, do your best. That's it, This is the thing that we have to take responsibility, do your own duty and do your best, not harm any people. This is good, I said, because action and reaction. If you still like react to what people saying to you, that maybe that you react maybe badly, but just don't care about that, focus on your life and do what you should do. And he's student anyway, like now you're a student, study hard, and then you will reap what you put to, like study hard, and you can be successful in your life.
Thank you. So thank you so much, and we could be here all evening, but I think we're going to have to wind things down. From what we've pulled out, it's about live with intention, nurture that peace, that joy, that compassion, that love, and there'll be a cause and effect anyway. That's a natural law of things, that we reap what we sow, as Santong put it into very kind of easy term words. We reap what we sow. So let's reap and focus on the good intention. As Alex Kakuyo said, we can dwell on what is happening to us as a result of racism and so on, but we could also take our energy and direct it into our intentions, our right living. So thank you so much. I mean, these are nuggets to take away, what I'm going to ask each of the speakers is one thing that you would like to suggest as a way forward for everyone here, in terms of just moving forward from this space, from here this evening and tomorrow, one thing that you will for them or suggest for them to move forward, especially if they're new to mindful living or mindfulness.
One thing I would suggest, if we look at the teachings of Asanga, if we look at the teachings of his brother Vasubandhu, what we find is two things. One, that everything in the universe arises from karma. And as a result of that karma, we have wholesome and unwholesome dharmas, which then result in either positive causes being created or negative causes being created. So if we are feeling unwell, if we are feeling like the world is out of control, then we can work to change things within our own little corner, not by taking responsibility for the actions of others, but ensuring that we personally are nurturing those wholesome dharmas, right? So, for example, if we have a garden, we have a choice. We can plant flowers in that garden, or we can let weeds grow. Now, that doesn't mean that weeds don't exist in other places, but our garden can have flowers. So what I would encourage people to do is, if they're trying to find some practical application for the teachings they received here today, is find ways to plant flowers in their own life. Be that caring for loved ones, be that being especially nice to servers at restaurants. Just find some daily practice they can do to nurture wholesome dharmas and plant flowers in the world, which will then sow seeds and result in other flowers growing later on over time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Much appreciated. Sangpong, would you like to share one thing that you'd ask everyone this evening to take away?
I think that what I have said, just like a simple thing that we do in our life, that maybe we can start from now, because if we do what is behind of action or karma, this is the mind. If we can look at our mind, or this is beautiful mind or ugly mind, something like that, we start from here. And the word that I said in my talk, that saha chata karma, because we was born, that because of our karma. And karma, this is like the whole body or our life, So in our life, we have like mind and body, we have the organ. So we have the two eyes, Try to look at the good side of things, We can learn from everything, even the bad thing, that if we look, opposite side, like the two sides of a coin, So we can learn that, we can learn that. So we have 2 ears, and we just try to listen to the good thing, or even the bad thing, we can listen. But if we are a good student, we can see, that what behind, what people talk and say, like we have heard from the question, like a racism or sexism, something like that, what's behind that, So we can think about that, Yeah. So
That's
2 eyes, yes, and 1 mind, that we have to see our mind, that we have 1 mind, and we have to look at, the good side of the mind, try to create, the beautiful space in our mind, and like I think Sensei may say that, like from Zen, you have to empty your cup, so that you can think in yourself. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Planting the flowers, seeding our mind with good positive thoughts. Guyashiki, one way forward for us this evening.
Tip for living. So at the start of the lockdown, I started this practice where every morning I was meditate. What's the best I can live today? What's the most, how might I live today, this day? in the best way. And then I would and get some inspiration, and then I'd write it down. And you know, there was that moment at the beginning of lockdown, which we don't even have lockdown anymore, but I just felt everything was spinning and moving. And then in the midst of that, I had the inspiration that it's spinning and moving. It gives freedom to move in any direction. So it transformed all these sort of it just gave me kind of bigger picture on things. So I don't know if that works for you. Feel
That's
free
wonderful.
to give that a
So
go.
rather than feel oppressed and trapped, it's looking at it and changing the mindset. It's a growth mindset, right? Yeah, rather than a fixed one.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Oh, there's maybe it's too late for this, but how might karma work? Hold on, I've just lost it.
With an impasse.
Impasse. How might karma work relating to the impasse? Can we quickly have a response to that before we start to wind down?
What's an impasse?
Adiola, would you like to expand on that question? Okay, don't know if would you like to clarify your question, Adiola?
Yeah, sorry, I need to plug my headphones in.
Oh, sorry.
So I was thinking about karma as kind of action, reaction. You do something else is created as a result of doing something. But I was thinking about being in relationship with someone or with something, and being at a stage where you're effectively stuck and at an impasse. So I suppose I'm asking, how is there a way in which karma could work to resolve that? I mean, I don't know. I'm just thinking about how you deal with being stuck, being the feeling of not being able to resolve the situation you're in, or not being able to move. How is there a way to use karma to resolve that?
Thank you, Adiola. Would anyone like to speak to that?
I can speak to that. So you used a very important word there, how to resolve that. And one of the reasons we struggle and suffer so much in the West is that we try to resolve everything. And we think everything can be fixed and wrapped up in a neat bow. And if we understand the karma, if we understand indifferent karma versus effacious karma, then we understand that not everything can be resolved, or at the very least not resolved in a way that we like. Sometimes we do have to allow things to be what they are. Specifically in the situation of a relationship, what we do with our actions is effacious karma. What the other person does with their actions is indifferent karma. And sometimes, and I'm not saying you personally are doing this, but sometimes spiritual practitioners see spirituality as a way of manipulating the world around them. If I'm a good person, if I practice every day, then good things will happen to me. And as we see from the examples of Buddha, of Dogen, of Shinran, that's not how it works. If we look at Buddha, he practiced very diligently, probably more than any of us, and he still had people try to kill him. His clan was almost wiped from the earth. His Sangha almost broke apart several times due to disagreements. So I guess when it comes to resolving situations, the only thing we can really do is look at our own actions, determine if we're doing everything we can that's of benefit. Have we explained our side of things clearly? Have we allowed the person to explain how they feel? Have we tried to compromise? And if we've done everything we honestly can and there's still no resolution, then the answer may be to simply accept things as they are, rather than continuously poking and poking and poking, potentially making things worse.
I hear that. Thank you
For that insight. I think that was helpful, Adiola. Okay, we're gonna have to wind down now, and I'd just like to say thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, the presenters. Thank you, everyone who booked the ticket and came on to exchange and share, and for us to all learn and grow as part of this wonderful process. I've certainly learned a great deal. Just to say that feel free to please complete the survey that's in the chat, because it's part of what we give out. We're gonna get back. So, you know, share the feedback so that we too can grow and improve our platform and our events. And join the directory, you know, on MNPC. Check out the up and coming events on our website. The next event is actually on Sunday, the March the 6th. And we have an international speaker called Irwa Kamensi, who is a priest. He's also a paramount king. And he is going to be talking on ancient African mindful practices using ancient Kemetic Egyptian philosophy and spiritual practice. And there will be a short practical as well alongside that. So another rich perspective for us to all draw on. And also there is going to be lots of retreats coming up. So join our database so you can find out more about the retreats, because the summer one is now going to be online, which will allow people from out of the UK to also join. So check the websites, www.mnpc.com. And on behalf of Will and the team, thank you Yotunde and Tash, Adiola, the tech team behind the scenes, helping to put this all together. Many thanks to our guests and our presenters, and have a wonderful evening. And thereafter, look after yourselves, folks. Feel free to open your mics and just share some energies as we close down.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, all speakers.
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.